Hello, and welcome to the Fintech Times Podcast, focused on discussing the latest fintech topics and trends from around the world. Established in 2016, the Fintech Times is a global multimedia news outlet centered around the world's first leading fintech newspaper. We report all the latest and brightest ideas from the fintech world.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Fintech Times podcast. My name is Polly Jean Harrison. I'm the features editor over at the Fintech Times, and I'm thrilled to be here today with George Denisenko, Vice President, Head of Product Management, Central and Eastern Europe, Middle East and Africa region of Visa. George, nice to see you today.
Glad to talk to you, Polly. Really looking forward to discuss the Buy Now, Pay Later theme with you.
Yes, I was really excited about this discussion because I feel like, buy now, pay later is just one of those topics that keeps coming up again, doesn't it? It's constantly on the forefront of everyone's minds. So I'm really excited to speak to you today about this. But I thought first, before we sort of kick off into the questions, could you give us a little bit of an introduction to yourself and the kind of things that you do over at Visa, just to get us started?
Yeah, sure, Polly. So I'm with Visa for about 7 years now. I'm based in Dubai office where Visa has a CEMEA region, Central Eastern Europe, Middle East, and Africa hub for. And I lead a team of product managers that develop and scale Visa's products in digital authentication, seller, BNPL, loyalty, core products, value proposition spaces for our clients. And so we work with fintechs, we work with traditional banks, we work with acquirers, and essentially our goal is to provide amazing products to our clients that will be serving ultimately the consumers who are participating in the commerce world.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that. And I guess, when we are thinking about consumers, one of the main trends in the sort of consumer payments landscape at the moment is very much buy now, pay later. I feel like it started over the last year or so and just really is boomed in popularity. So I'd love to know, in your opinion, why have facilities like buy now, pay later become so popular?
Yeah, it's a great question. So BNPL, as the acronym stands for, has been a phenomenon, as you rightly said, especially started during the pandemic years, right? And so the emergence of BNPL is really, or has been driven by the years that we just experienced, the last couple of years. It came about, in our view, due to also the rapid expansion of digital payments, especially when it relates to the e-commerce world. Buy now, pay later is in effect growing together with digital commerce very rapidly. It's a very attractive offer to the consumers who are looking for credit. And as you know, during the pandemic, the uncertainty in terms of economic uncertainty has grown, and consumers were looking for efficient ways of obtaining credit, low-cost ways. And as you know, BNPL providers, they offer credit and credit loans at 0% interest rates or significantly diminished interest rates. And they offer them very conveniently as a checkout button on this or that e-commerce site. So the emergence is really coming from the need for better ways of obtaining credit, more convenient ways, and also I would say out of the need to watch out for the interest rate and the expenses that consumers would be paying on those loans. Another strong factor, I think, is the fact that the funding scene, the fintech funding has been very strong during the last several years. And in fact, in Middle East, the funding for fintech has been really concentrated on BNPL players. So I think about the statistics that I've seen, 21% of all capital raised in the sector in 2021 was concentrated on BNPL for fintechs, players like Tebi, for example, or Lama in Saudi Arabia, Postpay again in UAE, or Tamara in Saudi Arabia. So, the funding of these fintech BNPL providers also helped quite a bit. And what we see in the survey that we ran in the post-COVID sort of years and during the COVID is that we see that 80% of consumers who were surveyed in the UAE and Saudi Arabia expressed a willingness to use BNPL services, which is a very large number, we believe. So these are all the different trends that underpin the development of BNPL globally, also here in the Middle East and Africa region.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that. And I guess when we're thinking about BNPL, is there a certain generation or a certain clientele or specific consumer group that this technology is specifically aimed at?
Well, there's no doubt that BNPL is becoming one of the most in-demand financing options in the region. Has witnessed really a big rise in popularity. The sheer convenience that it offers to consumers, honestly, is unmatched. It gives quick and easy way to managing spending for consumers. The strength of it lies in the ability to increase the payment options on the existing cards and the wallets, and also to obtain loans through direct providers of BNPL. Also works both on financial, psychological level. It's easier to manage loans that are lower interest rate charges or 0%. Now there is a notion that the demand for BNPL is driven more by younger generation, by millennials or Gen Zs. And from the statistics that we see, yes, that seems to be true. I think this generation is more savvy, probably technically with the gadgets, using e-com very often in terms of their purchases, and also have less appetite for obtaining credit at a higher interest rates that has been there traditionally. So looking for funding options, for credit funding options that would be not as expensive and also would be very transparent in terms of the payback of those loans. As we know, BNPL offers to consumers very transparent, at least in terms of repayment months. Options, can be repaid in 3 months, 6 months, in 4 payments, 3 payments, so on and so forth. So younger generation, I think, is more prone to this. But at the same time, when we look at the statistics that are coming to us from North America, we also see that older consumers, let's say age over 54, 55 years old, once they try BNPL options for credit, they also continue to use them. So we cannot really say that it's going to continuously be driven just by one segment that is young consumers. I think as BNPL options evolve and the offering evolves, we will see quite a widespread adoption of BNPL across different segments of consumers and certainly across different ages.
And yeah, I think that's all really interesting. And I think a lot of the time within, buy now, pay later, we do tend to think of it as a younger person's thing. But I do think, that isn't the case, as you said so yourself. I guess when we're thinking about the industries then, what industries are best served by these kind of facilities? Where is buy now, pay later best placed?
It looks like buy now, pay later is proliferating very fast in the categories that attract higher ticket spenders. So I would say this would be the categories like furniture, like electronics, like travel. However, we also see that category of clothing in retail is growing very fast as well. We don't expect that buy now, pay later will attract spending at everyday categories like groceries. So far, we haven't seen proliferation there. But at the same time, in categories attracting higher spend from customers, they are preferring to spend on installments and break down their purchases on installments, and also pay low interest rates or 0% interest rates on those purchases. We have seen this type of growth not only in North America, but also here in the Middle East by the BNPL providers, but also by traditional banks that offer installments on credit cards.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess it just kind of helps make things a bit more accessible, like maybe like you say, the big ticket items that perhaps you wouldn't normally be able to afford suddenly are now so much more accessible because you can break it down into individual payments, which is fantastic. And so I guess one of the main issues that we kind of talk about a lot, as well as when we think about buy now, pay later, is the security. How can this technology be utilized safely? Are there security concerns here?
Well, first, I would like to say that for more than 60 years, Visa has been in the business of facilitating payments globally between consumers and businesses. And with the new ways to pay, in addition to credit, debit, prepaid products, we have evolved into a global company that is a trusted engine of commerce, working to provide payment solutions for folks everywhere, for everyone and for everywhere, right? It's important to note that Visa does not issue credit, debit, or prepaid products, or set the consumer rates and fees on those products. We rather enable secure, reliable, efficient payments transactions globally. And we use our core processing network called VisaNet or other networks, combination of networks. When it comes to safety and security of our Visa network, through our cutting-edge cybersecurity, we take a robust multi-layered approach to combat the rising threat, let's say, of malware or social engineering. Using AI, advanced data analytics, we reduce the fraud and prevent it before it happens. And also, I would say we're proactive at deploying the most advanced technology to ensure data is not vulnerable, no matter where a transaction takes place. Now, in terms of how it connects to BNPL, as you know, Visa works with lots of BNPLs across the world to enable virtual or digital credentials for those BNPLs to serve to ultimately to the consumers to use those credentials via Visa network. And so once the digital or virtual credential from Visa is being used on Visa network, coming from those BNPL issuers, then obviously all these things that I mentioned apply. Also, Visa offers the solution called Visa Installment Solution for traditional players like financial institutions who offer installments on cards, and for those installments to be offered at the point of sale. And the same thing applies here. So once the card provided by the traditional bank on Visa rails is used on Visa network to perform an installment transaction or BNPL transaction, then the same security and safety would apply to this transaction as well on Visa rails.
Amazing, thank you. So that sort of kind of very briefly leads me on to my next question, which is all about regulation. I think one of the main things we see in BNPL is that it's constantly compared to traditional credit card and traditional credit facilities. When it comes to the regulation, then, what are the major differences here between buy now, pay later and the more traditional credit?
Yeah, regulation is a very important topic for BNPL. Essentially, BNPL is crediting instrument to credit the consumer. And so there's different parties across the world, different institutions, regulatory bodies, and the bodies that unite banks or merchants that are interested to understand better how this industry or segment of the industry will be regulated. Consumer Financial Protection Bureau in the US, for example, last year requested information from a firm, from Afterpay, Klarna, PayPal, and Zip. These are large providers of BNPL globally in the United States, surely. Requested information from them to be provided on their business practices. This information was going to be provided by end of March 25th. So it looks like Financial Protection Bureau in the US is very interested to understand how these essentially credit loans are being provided, what are the protections for the consumer, and what are the service details or disclosures that these firms are making when they provide the services. Also, from what I understand, the American Bankers Association, which unites, obviously banks in the U.S., is, from what I'm seeing, concerned about BNPLs, called, looking at them and any kind of risks that they present to consumers or merchants, any kind of questions on integrity of consumer credit market. And called out that BNPLs need to be monitored for how they originate loans, what are the underwriting practices, what are the disclosures, credit reporting practices. In terms of Visa, so Visa, in a response, for example, to Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, also mentioned that, the Bureau should take a cautious approach, for example, to regulating buy now, pay later, because they're evolving. This product is evolving, and in some instances, both at state and federal levels in the United States, these players are already regulated. In California, for example, there's laws that regulate BNPLs. So this is what's related to US, from what we know. In terms of UK, where also BNPL proliferated quite well and quite extensively. UK Financial Conduct Authority is also looking at the appropriate regulation for them in terms of data collection, usage, disclosure, retention practices by those providers. The credit reporting bureaus globally, they're looking how to add those loans, BNPL loans, to credit reporting and credit reports. So when the institutions are assessing the credit eligibility of this or that consumer, that those loans are also recorded. So all in all, regulation on BNPLs is evolving. I think more to come because the product is also evolving very fast, and the ways that it's being offered is developing as we speak.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, regulation is one of those interesting topics with buy now, pay later, because so many places haven't yet set what regulation that they would like to implement. When do you think that we are likely to see sort of some of this new regulation coming into play? Is it sort of sooner rather than later, do you think?
It's difficult to predict, and also regulatory conditions in different markets differ from each other. But there is certainly an interest from regulators to ensure that the players in the industry, as well as, of course, the consumers are protected, given the right disclosures, and also the proper information is provided to them, as well as the loans that are being taken by consumers, that these loans are properly recorded and reported to ensure that the consumers continue to have the ability to obtain credit. And if there is any, let's say, losses on these loans that are taking place, that it's clear to the industry players what is the consumer ability to further get credit and get lended to. So all of these issues, I believe, will be considered when potential regulations will come in.
It's going to be an interesting one to keep an eye on, I think. So do you think any improvements are needed for the industry? Where are the gaps?
Well, we just discussed the regulatory aspects of this. I think that the players that are in this industry will continue to evolve their business models, right? And so the rise of BNPL has been on the back of the rise of e-commerce. Now, one of the key aspects of further development of the industry is how do you bring those BNPL solutions and loans to the physical point of sale, right? So as we know, BNPL evolved on e-commerce, but on e-commerce it's quite easy to integrate with e-com site or e-com merchant and a seller. Now, to have the same solution available at the physical point of sale checkout is not as easy to integrate with a merchant, and so that's where Visa comes in with the solution that we provide for BNPL fintechs, where we work, as I mentioned in one of the previous questions, we work with these fintechs to issue virtual digital credentials so that fintech customer, BNPL fintech customer, can have Visa card issued to them digitally, can provision it in the Pays, like Apple Pay, for example, or Samsung Pay, and can perform transactions seamlessly at the point of sale. So technologically, to get to the physical point of sale, this is something that I think will be very important for some of the BNPL fintechs. In terms of the battle for the consumer, because obviously these BNPLs compete for customers out there. It looks to us that BNPL providers will be redirecting quite a lot of their marketing budget towards offerings that are aimed at keeping the consumer loyal to their platform. So these providers can turn their websites into shopping discovery platforms. This is what Western BNPL providers are doing, for example, in the US. And of course, it's probably safe to say that not all of the BNPL fintechs that sprung up, I don't know if it would be very easy for all of them to survive, because there's lots of expense that goes into establishing the platform, connecting with the merchants. Also, when you lend money, potentially you can lend it to the segment where credit losses could be a higher level. So it's important to grow the gross merchandising value. That's how BNPL fintechs call the volume of sales that they have, and achieve economies of scale. And also, raise enough money as you go through this journey to cover all these expenses up front. Regular scrutiny, we mentioned, this is something that will be more of a important aspect to pay attention to. And also, I think the partnerships that some of these players can accomplish or can establish with more developed traditional financial institutions, that would be something of a trend that we will observe going forward.
Fantastic. And did you have any other sort of opinions on the future of the industry? Do you think it'll still be as popular in a few years' time, or will it start to fizzle out as a trend?
BNPL, buy now, pay later, really it's installment loans, installment lending, or any form of point of sale lending. And this form has existed for a while. It's not a fad. It's existed for some time and has been offered by traditional banks in one form or the other on cards that they issue. So, for example, installments or BNPL is very prevalent in markets like has been prevalent in markets like Turkey, Mexico, Brazil. I think in Brazil, more than 50% of credit volumes is on installments that go through credit card rails issued by traditional banks. So it's been there for some time. It's achieved tremendous growth due to pandemic years and the growth of e-commerce. And now that BNPL fintechs have become large generators of these installment loans, the traditional players are also expanding their offerings. So, for example, in UAE, BNPL or installment offering has been very popular for years with customers. A lot of these offerings have been taking place after the transaction. So when the customer does a transaction in store and then goes on the application of a bank mobile app and select transaction post-purchase and make it pay in installments, or through the point of sale transactions. And these are called bilateral agreements that an issuer has with a merchant, and merchant essentially funds those transactions to the traditional bank, traditional issuer. So in my view, in our view, it's not a trend that will go away. I think the way of paying on installments is going to grow considerably, continuously, and we will see further development in this aspect in the credit lending space.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, George. It's been really interesting to hear your insights. Did you have any final thoughts about anything that we've spoken about today? Anything you just wanted to end on?
Well, I just wanted to mention that Visa is a network that is interested to expand all types of payments, and Visa looks at installment payments or buy now, pay later as an opportunity to to grow in this space. And so, as I mentioned, we work with BNPLs across the world, players like Afterpay, Charge After, Klarna, Payd, Splitit, Zip, and so on and so forth. And we issue virtual digital credentials for them since 2017 for their customers. So we've been involved in them and engaged with them very, very closely. And from 2019, we have a solution called Viz, Visa Installment Solution. This is essentially a platform that allows merchants and acquirers to and issuers to plug into through APIs, seamless integration. And every time a consumer comes to the point of sale to do the purchase, and if their bank offers them BNPL or installment options, our solution would allow a merchant to check if the installment plan is available on this card, and this installment plan will be shown at the point of sale, and the customer can select installment plan. Transaction will be seamlessly converted into installments for traditional players. We're not talking about BNPLs here, but traditional banks who offer installment plans. And this solution is now live. We actually launched in the UAE itself with Sharaf DG electronic store across their network, and with ADCB on eligible cards. And we've launched it in December last year. But the solution is also live in Canada, in Malaysia, in Australia, US, with a host of other markets that it will be expanding to. So we'll be glad to work with our partners further, with traditional banks and fintechs as well, BNPL providers, to bring installment payments and BNPLs to the point of sale, physical or e-com, regardless, together, and make it another way for customers to pay when they are engaged in commerce.
Amazing. That all sounds absolutely fantastic. Well, thank you so much, George, for joining me today. It's been a pleasure to talk to you and learn more about this. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Paul. It's been my pleasure to talk to you as well.
Fantastic. Thank you. And thank you so much to our listeners as well. Thank you for joining us, and I hope to catch you on the next one.
Thank you for listening to the Fintech Times podcast. We hope you enjoyed the discussion as much as we did. Don't forget to check us out at thefintechtimes.com and subscribe to our monthly publication to keep up to date with all the latest fintech news.